The liturgical calendar, that is, the calendar that marks the passage of the church year, begins not in January with New Year's Day, but with the first Sunday of Advent, which is to say that the liturgical calendar begins with the anticipation of, and then eventually the wonder of, the birth of Jesus the Christ. In January, it celebrates Epiphany and the baptism of Jesus, winds its way through Lent and on to Holy Week and Easter, then through the Easter season to Pentecost. Mixed in among and beyond these things is a large swath of what is called ordinary time, time that is not marked by any particular event or celebration. And in ordinary time, our sanctuary banners are green. And at last, we come to today, the last Sunday of the liturgical year, a white banner day, which is known as Christ the King Sunday or Reign of Christ Sunday. Properly understood, it's a day for focusing upon the lordship of Jesus Christ. What does it mean? And the nature of Christ's reign. What does it consist of? That's the last thing that we celebrate or contemplate, the culminating event before beginning the cycle afresh. And that is why in today's selected lectionary passage from the Gospel of John, we find the text focused upon those very things. Who is Jesus? And how and of what is he a king? There's a lot going on, a lot to unpack in these 10 short verses. Let's remind ourselves of the scene and the circumstances because we did not arrive at this place out of nowhere. First, there's been a long-standing and escalating tension between Jesus and the Jewish religious leaders. He has challenged and questioned their leadership, their teachings, their very understanding of God's law. Essentially, he has accused them of being more interested in preserving power and privilege than in pursuing justice and mercy. As we can well imagine, such accusations don't sit well. The previous evening, Jesus was taken by force by the Jewish religious leaders while praying in Gethsemane. The high priest, Caiaphas, has interrogated Jesus throughout the night about his disciples and his teachings. And now it is early morning, and the religious authorities take Jesus and deliver him to the headquarters of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea. As they deposit him on the governor's doorstep, Pilate comes out to them and asks, "What accusation do you bring against this man? Why are you at my door before noon? I've barely finished my breakfast." They answer, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Which essentially means we have no charge. Nothing under the Roman law anyway. He's stolen nothing, harmed no one, but we just want him gone. He's a threat. Pilate responds, "Take him and judge him according to your religious law." And the Jewish religious leaders respond, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death," making clear their desired outcome. They could stone him for blasphemy, as they've previously threatened to do, but only the Roman government can carry out a death sentence of crucifixion. If the Jewish authorities stone Jesus, they risk disorder and repercussion from his growing number of followers. But if the Roman military machine executes him, the Jewish leaders' hands appear clean, and his followers can't begin to combat the Roman government. There's an old saying that says, "Beware of someone who throws a brick and then hides their hand," which means beware of those who stir up trouble or harm but take no responsibility for it. And this is precisely what the religious authorities seek to do. Haul Jesus before the governor, and let the gears of the empire grind him up. Their problem is solved, and if you squint your eyes just right, their conscience is clean. They won't have sentenced him. They won't have executed him. They'll have thrown the brick, but no one will have seen their hand. So now, Jesus is on trial for his life before Pilate the governor. And Pilate is trying to sort out just who Jesus is. Pilate begins the interrogation. Are you the king of the Jews? Now, practically speaking, Pilate knows the answer to this. Practically speaking, the Jews have no king. They live under the authority of a Roman-appointed client king. So if Jesus says that he is the king of the Jews, he's making a messianic claim, essentially owning that he is the leader of a political uprising or insurrection. And if he claims a rival political power to Caesar's, then he's guilty of sedition or of treason and can be executed. But Jesus answers neither yes nor no. Instead, he responds, "You asked this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Which is to say, I know who's throwing the brick here. Do you have any reason to believe that I'm a threat? Pilate presses back. I'm not a Jew, am I? I don't know why you're here. Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? You must be guilty of something, or you wouldn't be here. Which we note is buying into the assertion of the Jewish leaders. If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you. It's a circular logic. We hand him over because he's guilty, and he's guilty because we hand him over. But Pilate accepts the premise. In responding to the trumped-up charge against him, Jesus replies, "My kingdom is not from this world. The source of my authority is not earthly power. If it were, my followers would be rising up, fighting. I have no army. You see no mob at your gates. My kingdom is not from here." Pilate only hears two words: my kingdom. It's a claim of authority. It's an assertion of power, whatever its source. And rival claims to power must be rooted out, because empires can be overthrown by force or undermined by ideas. Pilate responds to Jesus, "So you are a king." And Jesus replies, "You say that I'm a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." And then Pilate asks the most famous question in history, but we don't know how he asks it. We have his words, but not his inflection or his intonation. Does he ask it with genuine curiosity? What is truth? Or does he ask it with a sort of worldly cynicism? What is truth? Every time I read this passage, I try it with a different inflection, but today I'm going to read it as worldly and cynical. Pilate operates according to the truth of the world. Let's call it truth with a small t. In the world, the truth is that money is power. And if you have enough money, you can get more power, and if you have enough power, you can get more money. The only golden rule is that whoever has the gold makes the rules. If you have the biggest army, you get to sit on the throne. Raw power dominates. Raw power subjugates. Raw power consumes and extracts, and if you try to question raw power, Raw power eliminates. Raw power crucifies its opponents. And raw power's singular goal is to preserve and maintain itself. Why? Because raw power is temporary. This is something that every dictator knows and fears. Before there was a Roman Empire, there was a Greek Empire. And before the Greek Empire, there was the Persian Empire. And before the Persians, the Babylonians. And before the Babylonians, the Assyrians. And before the Assyrians, the Egyptians, and on and on. The small t truth that Pilate seeks to preserve and uphold, for all its swords and helmets and chariots and horses and armaments and roadside crosses, the small t truth is temporary and fragile and doomed to failure. This is because raw power is a finite resource and you can only have so much of it for so long. I'm reminded of one of my favorite poems, Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. On the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings." Note the irony of the title. "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." But by contrast, Jesus makes no claims based on the small t truth of power. Jesus has come into the world to embody, to live out, to proclaim a capital T truth that is not provisional or temporal, but eternal and everlasting. The capital T truth of love, forgiveness, of compassion, of redemption, of justice, of mercy. That is the nature of his kingdom. And note that far from grasping after power, these aims all share power or give it away. You can't run out of love, because love grows and love spreads and love multiplies and it sustains and it reproduces itself. It is abundant and it is eternal. This is the truth, Pilate. Jesus is saying, I am love. I am grace. I am abundant, unquenchable life. I am truth itself. You have the power to crucify me, but you cannot kill me. That's the nature of my kingdom and of my kingship. Anyone who stakes a claim to raw power is, in the scheme of eternity, nothing more than the king of an eye blink. But a king who embodies life and love is the King of Kings, and his kingdom will never end. Quite a contrast. Pilate's temporal, cynical, worldly truth versus Jesus' eternal truth. But we must choose which we will live by. You see, we're as vulnerable as anyone to the temptations of a world run by wealth and power. We often listen to the loudest voice. We often find ourselves wanting just a little more money or a little more power than we have. We place too much trust in politics, which is essentially the amassing and wielding of power. We value short-term gain above long-term goals, kingdom goals. All of which makes this a pretty important Sunday. Consider it like Election Day. This Sunday, we ask ourselves anew, who is our King? What is the nature of his kingdom? What do we stand for? Who will we demonstrate our allegiance to in our actions, our attitudes, our stewardship? And by what hallmarks do we know his kingdom? How will we show ourselves subjects of it above all others? The one we strive to follow is indeed King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he shall reign forever and ever. Amen.